are live. Yes, here's the button. We're just saying we are live. So thank you all for joining. Just give a few people a minute to join because this is our new platform with throughout different social media platforms. So we are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on YouTube as well. So hopefully everything is working. And I think it's the second time we've only used this platform, so I'm sure it's all going to go swimmingly fine. So I just want to say thank you all for joining us today. My name is Debbie Wilson. I'm the Young Persons Project Manager for NRAS, and I also manage the JAA side as well. So that's JAA at NRAS. And I remember being vividly a young adult living with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, JAA. And I remember really well, you know, what life is about, trying to be a young adult anyway, what all the life challenges that come with that, but also having a long-term health condition on top of that. It can really make life quite hard at that time. So I'm delighted to be joined by Andrea McBride, Jack Posnett and Chloe Haynes for this online event this evening, which is a joint venture with Arthur's Place. Andrea is the founder of the amazing Arthur's Place, which we just found out is 10 years old this year. So happy, amazing birthday. And what a way to celebrate this evening. So if you're not sure what Arthur's Place is, it's a website, a magazine and sort of social networks for those aged 18 to 35 with arthritis. Plus it's much more. It has grown so much in the last 10 years. And Jack and Chloe, who are with us, they are great advocates for Arthur's Place. They've been involved in it and, you know, great advocates of young people living with arthritis as well. So I'm just going to introduce Andrea, Jack and Chloe as well. If you could just give a brief introduction and then we'll go into more about Arthur's Place, how it's grown, what it offers today, and also what NRAS offers and how we can work more closely together in the future. So Andrea, over to you.
Thank you so much, Debbie, and just thank you everybody that's joined us today. Yeah, I'm Andrea McBride. I'm the co-founder of Arthur's Place. I set that up with actually my sister, who's Sarah Edwards, who's a digital media expert, and I was also a advanced rheumatology nurse practitioner as well, and that's sort of where Arthur's Place came about from. And Jack and Chloe are fantastic contributors and members of Arthur's community. So Jack, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jack Posnett. I'm 25 day to day. I do media and communications in education. But yeah, when I was 19, I developed ankylosing spondylitis, and it was a really tough time, and I was looking for support, and that's online, and that's how I found out that other young people were going through a similar thing, and that's how I found Arthur's Place.
Chloe?
Thank you.
I'm Chloe. As Jack said, day to day, I'm a psychotherapist. I work predominantly with adults and children with trauma, but I've also worked with adults and children with chronic illnesses. Arthritis being one of them, but lots of different ones. I feel like I should go 37. Because I feel like I'm like hiding in Arthur's Place a little bit at the moment. I came across it really late. It was probably only maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was sent an article by a family member by a Arthur's Place member called Izzy.
Yes.
And it had been put in the newspaper, and I'd been sent an online and I contacted her actually, and we kind of set up communication, and that's how I became involved in it. I've also been quite involved in NRAS. I've done a number of different events, family events, conferences, various things. So I like to be as involved as possible, really. But my little girl has since stopped a lot of that.
Well, thank you all. Yes, I must admit, you don't need to know my age, and unfortunately, I'm too old for Arthur's Place. And if it was around when I needed it, it would have been absolutely amazing. But I don't even think the internet was around then. That's my age. But anyway, I just thought, Andrea, can you explain kind of more about why you actually set up Arthur's Place? Because I think the way you set it up and how the work you were doing is absolutely inspirational. So over to you. Why did you set Arthur's Place up?
Thank you. The reason really was 10 years ago, I was working as an advanced rheumatology nurse specialist and asked to set up a brand new young adult service in an adult hospital, helping the teenagers and older teenagers and the younger adults move over into our care. And when I started to sort of look at how I could best support them, I was just very aware that there seemed to be a huge amount of information for children and parents. There was a lot of information for older adults, but the sort of 18 to 30s in this middle, I thought that there just wasn't anything that felt relatable or in context to young people's lives. And the sorts of people I was helping support were both those that had got a diagnosis as children, but were having to almost revisit that diagnosis now as a young adult, and starting to have to sort of navigate healthcare and have conversations and find a new confidence, if you like, to sort of speak up for themselves a little bit in these very shortened appointments. And also young people that were newly diagnosed, some of which had quite a struggle to get to a diagnosis. So, that had been particularly hard for them. And I think that for them, there was quite a sense in some of the clinics that some of their hopes and dreams had suddenly been shattered, and that they didn't quite know what their future could look like, or what living with an arthritis or condition like this could mean. And then trying to find others in similar situations was just incredibly difficult. So a lot felt isolated, a lot would tell me that they felt like they didn't know how to move forward, and they felt quite stuck. So I got a bit of a working group together. We did a survey together. We looked at what they wanted. And really, it was more help outside of the hospital environment, more chance to connect with other young people going through similar experiences and to sort of share stories. And then just more of the sort of medical and health information just put back into into how normal life runs. So it wasn't all sectioned off for them, but it could just fit a little bit more comfortably. And then I raised the money, and then with Sarah's help and from members, from some of the patients as well, Arthur's Place started. And it was amazing. I mean, it kind of blew my mind. I thought it was going to be a local initiative, a little bit of a support network. And within 3 months of launching Arthur's Place, we won NRAS's Patient in Focus Gold Award. And Elsa Bosworth was amazing, incredibly encouraging, and it just sort of exploded. It just took off, and we were really sort of noted by NRAS and Versus Arthritis and some of the other organisations as being that space that filled that void, filled that gap, and our community just grew and grew. Yeah, it's been quite incredible, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I think what you did was absolutely amazing, and you've kind of hit the nail on the head. It's such, I don't know, Jack and Co, you may agree, but it resonated so much with me going through kind of being in that 18 to sort of 35-year-old group, especially kind of in your sort of late teenage, early 20s, when, you kind of either go to uni or you're starting your first job, and then going to clinics where actually you've always, if you like me, I was diagnosed with JA when I was very young, and then going to an adult clinic, and everyone said, oh, it's not an old person's disease, it can happen to children. But then you go to this clinic and you are surrounded by, older people, and you feel very uncomfortable and very aware of kind of who you are and this disease that you've got, but you kind of feel very isolated. Chloe and Jack, did you feel the same, even though you were kind of diagnosed at that time?
So I was diagnosed at 2, and there was no, so I was initially diagnosed with lupus, and then it went to polyarticular rheumatoid arthritis. And it wasn't until much later, and actually then it was Still's disease, and then eventually settled on JIA. there was no paediatric clinic at the hospital that I was at, so I was seen in an adult clinic from being tiny, you know, sitting in those massive chairs, kind of on a long corridor with generally much older ladies with, and I just remember looking at their hands and kind of, you know, the kind of deformities in their hands and just being terrified, really, and nobody really explaining to me that that was different, or that it was, the information back then was so different. And you know, even my dad said to me the other day, "You didn't grow out of it then?" No, Dad, I didn't grow out of it, because that's what we were told. We were told constantly that we would grow out of it, that I would grow out of it. And you know, I didn't have any support. And I, as I said, it was probably only in my early 30s that I found the support that has really made a difference. And it has been really hard, because just, you know, I went through, I did an undergraduate, a teaching degree and an MA, and all of them, I kind of had to fight for support in those. You know, at the age of 27, admitting that I would not be able to work, it was really difficult. And kind of, I just wish I had a bit more of that kind of support that's there now. Then it would have made a massive difference.
Yeah, I think peer support is so important. And Jack, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, mine's a bit of a different experience. I just developed a limp at the age of 19, and went to the doctors, and they were like, "Oh, you've got a bit of Achilles tendonitis; it'll go away." And then it didn't, and then everything got worse. But like, I couldn't stand up straight. It was very difficult to get out of a chair and move around. And I'd gone from being quite an active person all of a sudden to a complete drop. I was a trampolinist for a number of years, and I was on a bit of a break of it from it at the time because it had been such a big part of my life. And then all of a sudden I can't go back to it. And, you know, all of a sudden not being able to do stuff with my friends because I can't move and I'm so tired. And I was supposed to be getting ready to go to university as well. And no one was diagnosing me properly either, because it is ankylosing spondylitis, but it's non-radiographic, meaning that it shows up on an MRI. But at the time, you didn't have ankylosing spondylitis unless it was showing up on an X-ray, which meant your bones were fusing. So it wasn't until I got on my drug trial that the drug trial doctor was like, "Yeah, you've got non-radiographic ankylosing spondylitis. Let's sort you out." But it's still so isolating to be like among people your own age, like back at home, and when I went to uni, because my first semester of uni I was still without medication. I started it in the following semester. So you're trying to get to know and meet new people, and you're really struggling to socialize. So I did feel very alone, and that's when I like was just grasping for people and articles, anything, to try and find some sort of community of people that might be going through the same thing. Because again, everyone says, "Oh, it's for old people. It's for old people." You think you're part of such a small group. And then I found online communities. I found Arthur's place and discovered that I wasn't on my own, and that after a bit of time finding that, I also wanted to, you know, write and do things to try and help people that might be going through a similar experience, because I didn't know what was happening and what would happen in the future, because I wasn't getting any medication. And like you said, Chloe, you go to these doctors' offices and these rheumatology hospitals, and you're the youngest person in the room, but you think that is going to be you at 19, 20, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously, Andrew, you saw that and you developed Arthur's Place. But how has it grown over the last sort of 10 years? Because obviously what you've done is amazing. You offer so much. So for you, how has it grown?
I mean, the key thing really has been this sense right from the start that it belonged to the young people themselves. So right from day one, it was all about what is it that you need? How can I best help you? And what can we do together? It's always been about, let's do this together. What's needed? What's missing? Or what's out there that we can share with each other? And to just try and make every day just a bit more hopeful and optimistic, but equally, if there's sort of struggles as well, for us to actually just take a moment and support each other and be there for each other. And the way that we've done that really is, initially it was a very small website with just information on it, and it had a forum within the website itself. But again, constantly listening to my patient group at that time, it was really when Facebook and some of the social media groups were really starting to take off, and I just knew that a lot of what was happening in the NHS or some of the other sort of smaller support environments hadn't quite made that leap into social media at that time. So we then set up our own social media community group, Arthur's Place Social, on Facebook, and that's where it really has organically blossomed, if you like. I mean, I never raised enough money for any marketing. It's never been sort of advertised, and I am just a nurse that's done this, and we've got a fantastic community. So, but it's just grown and grown, and young people have found us literally from around the world, which just still does blow my mind a little bit. So the community now, we've got people from the UK, America, Australia, across Europe. And what's amazing is they are such shared experiences when you come into that social group, and I moderate that group on it. It sounds very formal, doesn't it, say I moderate the group? We do, and it's extremely safe, and I'm extremely aware of that responsibility. But it just sort of evolved as this lovely big family space, and there's a lot of care in that space. And then we listen to see why the needs are, what the conversations are around, and if somebody needs a bit of help or a bit of top tips about whether it's footwear or fatigue or whatever it is, often the jewels of information come from the community and the young people that have experienced it. They've got a wealth of knowledge beyond often what doctors and nurses and health specialists can share, because that they've got lived experience. But where there are gaps, then I'll recognise that gap. If we can't signpost to any other of the organisations like NRAS or Versus Arthritis or NAS, then we'll go and create that content ourselves, and we'll offer opportunities. So young people are blogging. We've got one of the from what I understand, we've got one of the largest collections of stories written by young people. We've got over 150 blogs. So there's blogging opportunities. We've got a TV channel, and we've got a podcast series called Arthur's Heroes, which has just been lovely, just really heartwarming to do, because I just think they're all real heroes, and really just the strength of mind and will and courage that it takes to just be a young person today, regardless of having any other additional sort of health considerations. It's tough, it's really tough. So Arthur's Place has evolved beyond the website to these sort of other spaces, really, with lots of a variety of content, from video to audio to storytelling, and Jack's been quite active in that space for us as well, and we just welcome anybody that would like to share their story to get in touch, and if they want to do photography or video or whatever it is, if they see that there's a gap or a need, or they just feel that it would be helpful, then we'll try and make it happen.
Yeah, I must admit, hearing them in NRAS, we've got our Young Voices panel, and it was started just before I joined. And actually, when I kind of first met them and listening to their stories and actually what they kind of went through, it resonated quite a lot with me. But also, those who were kind of diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when they were in their late teens and when they're 20s, when they're at uni, kind of a bit like you, Jack. And it was just kind of how I can't imagine how you would have kind of navigated your life at that situation and that time. And just hearing them, actually, it really kind of gives, as you said, Andrew, it gives us strength as well. And even I think, Chloe, I don't know whether you agree or not, but actually having kind of arthritis as a young child, it really gives you that resilience in life to kind of go, oh, okay, I can actually do things. It may take me a bit longer, but it can kind of gives you that inner strength and actually ability to adapt as well. That's kind of what I found throughout my life. Jack, have you, when you were diagnosed and then obviously you got involved in Arthur's Place, how's that kind of supported you at that time?
I mean, the Arthur's Place was fantastic. Not only was I able to read articles and see the social group posts from people that had gone through a similar thing, but it was like the social group and the use of social media, it made it feel like it was a real community where you could like post a question and like you get a wealth of responses, and it's still like that today. And again, it was when I wanted to, try and put my story across as well to also support people who might have gone through a similar experience to me. It was they were happy for me to be involved in that, so it was a good support for me, and it allowed me to try and also support other people as well. Which again, Andrew, it's like you said, it's about the people, and you definitely made it about the people by giving us not free reign, but a lot of power over the social group and conversation, and
Definitely.
focusing on the topics that matter most to us or that we want to find out about, and we can learn from each other.
And it's just so varied. I don't know, Chloe, how you found it, but it's in some ways the sort of conversations that I had are quite varied, but then there are sort of common conversations that keep coming back, where it can be about sort of life experiences and sharing that. So parenthood and having young families, or even thinking and contemplating like, God, can I have children, or what's that going to look like? Sometimes when you go through looking at university or jobs and things like that, trying to think ahead about families, you just think, God, that feels like way off. I'm way. It's not part of what I want to think about just yet. But actually, some of these things can be quite helpful when you hear other, say, young parents started to talk about it. It has triggered conversations in people that are maybe 18, 19 years old to say, actually, do I need to go and have a conversation with my doctor about that? Because what kind of treatments am I on? Or what does that mean? Or do I need to plan? Or because you don't always tend to need to think to do that, do we? We can often sort of step along in life and deal with each thing as it comes. But sometimes there's a little bit more juggling or planning to make sure that you get the best opportunities and experiences, really. I mean, I don't know, Chloe, how you found that, as you've got a young one, haven't you? So
I have, yeah, she's 8 months. I wish that I had the capacity, or someone had mentioned that to me much younger, about particularly, this is very specific to me, but fertility related to autoimmune diseases. It was never mentioned. And, at kind of 35, to then be told that I had quite severe fertility difficulties because of, they think, my autoimmune difficulties, was absolutely world-shattering, because no one had ever mentioned it. And then actually, it only took a really small amount of research, just, for me, nobody kind of more professional, to find that that's a real link. And I think if I had somewhere like Arthur's Place kind of 20 years ago to say, oh, I wonder if anybody else has experienced this, it might have given me the opportunity to talk about it, or to go, actually, yeah, like you said, Andrea, actually I maybe need to go and have a conversation with my doctor about this and find that out. Because so I ended up having to go down the IVF route because of that reason, because my autoimmune disease had affected my fertility so dramatically, which I had no idea about.
Yeah, and I think it must, you know, I don't know, Debbie, I mean, you've got the experience as well, haven't you, that when you're diagnosed as a child as well, and your parent takes such good care of you, and their parents are such active parts in the conversation with the doctors, and then suddenly it's sort of, I know for you, Chloe, you didn't have a paediatric clinic, but sometimes the children's hospitals are a separate entity, and then it's like there's this invisible door, isn't there? You like step through, and it's like, right, okay, now you're all adults, and this is the adult world, and you're now going to just talk for yourself, ask questions for yourself. And to be honest, even some of my patients that were sort of 50 or 60, they sometimes would love their partner or their best friend or the daughter to come with them. Yet this kind of transition period, it seems quite stressful for a lot of young adults, I think, in this sudden weight of responsibility about having to say, what do I need to ask? How do I ask it? Or
I think it's so timed, as we know, particularly in the NHS, your appointments, and having to wait for appointments as well, which is really difficult. But also feeling, I remember being that kind of age, that kind of 19, 20 age, and feeling like I wanted to ask questions about the more holistic side, the kind of, what about my mental health? What about work? And what about driving? And what about this? And just not really having anywhere to do that. And Arthur's Place offers such an amazing platform and forum where we can do that. Where we can just, not only just say, this is my situation, can anybody help, but also people going, oh, I've done that. Let me, I've done that. I know, this is the, and it's definitely not always, this is what I did and it is how amazing it was. But sometimes this is what I did and these were the challenges and this is what helped and this is what I do. And just, we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we've got a question, because there are definitely people who've been there before.
Yeah,
and definitely.
I think, sorry, Debbie. Sometimes it's just even in the first sentence, isn't it, from somebody else to say, just start by saying this, or take your mobile phone in. If you've seen, say, an article on Arthur's Place, or if you've seen an article on a GAA NRAS website or versus arthritis, where it's an area that you'd like to just understand a bit more or ask a question. Sometimes it's hard to have the confidence to say, can I stop you there to the doctor and say, actually, I've got something that's important for me. But sometimes having maybe a phone or something in your hand where you can say, can you tell me about this, please? It might help as well as a bit of a tool to trigger those conversations.
I must admit, one of the things I'm keen, I'm quite passionate about it from the JA NRAS side, is to really empower children from quite young age to actually to understand their disease, what's going on, and so then they can then start asking the questions to the doctors as well, and then having that shared decision making with them, get the children and the families involved, because otherwise when they go through transition, even though there should be young adult clinics out there, but not everywhere in the NHS has it, again, postcode lottery. So then young adults, young teenagers are going into adult services, and then they're on their own, and there's like, how are you? I'm fine. But actually you're not fine, but giving you that strength to actually say, and empowerment to actually tell people what's going on with you. This is your body. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be, whatever stigma is attached to having arthritis. It's nothing to do with that. This is you, and this is what you want to know. If you want to know about more the medications you're on, ask the questions, because in the end, you're the ones that are actually taking it. The doctors, they're brilliant. They're amazing. They know how to treat it. You know how to live it. And that's what, that is what that conversation should always be about. And I just think there should be so many more young adult clinics out there, because I think, you know, the work that Janet McDonough did, unfortunately now she's retired, we miss you, Janet, has been about all the, you know, age development, because we know the brain changes at different times throughout, you know, from children to teenagers, adolescents, and then into young adults as well. The brain is developing, and then trying to kind of pigeonhole every young adult, right, you're in adult services now, off you go. You don't know, you won't have all the members of the disciplinary team that you've had in pediatric care, and you're going to have less time. So there you go. It is very hard, especially if, you know, you're trying to, as Jack, you know, Jack, you just moved, you know, or you started uni when you were diagnosed. It is so hard, and we really need to give that more support to that age group. And I think this is where Arthur's Place is absolutely brilliant, giving you that peer-to-peer support. And I must admit, I think what you do is great. But actually, I just kind of, from Jack and Chloe, so from your point of view, how has being involved in Arthur's Place actually helped you with, you know, with your lives? Jack, that one.
I mean, it almost, not to say selfish, but it being involved in Arthur's Place and writing for Arthur's Place was a form of almost therapy for me as well. Like, I wanted to help people, but you're also talking to people, and you're talking about things and getting stuff almost off your chest as well. And I wanted to like do that, but also try and help people. And also, like I say, it's a community. People talk. You're not just throwing something out into the ether. People talk back, and people respond. And it was really good for my mental health as well. You do feel really supported. Again, one of my main things early on was just feeling so alone and isolated. And even when my medication started working, you've got no one really around you that you can relate to or talk to. So Arthur's Place had an entire community of people that I could talk to and, you know, get advice from, and then go on to get some of that off my chest myself. Not only also helping people, but people coming back and saying, "Oh, I felt like that too." So you're not thinking like, "Oh, I felt like this," but maybe not everyone else would feel like that. And people do. It's not easy. And what do I want to say? Debbie, you made a point of saying doctors know how to treat it, and the young people know how to live it. And I think that's such a really important message to say, and that young people's voices and the young people's voices that are living it do matter, because it's their experience. Like I've met some great medical professionals, and I've also met some medical professionals that might lack a bit of empathy in my time on my journey. And I wish I'd have had that phrase in my mind, just to say back at them, like, I'm the one living it, not you. And Arthur's Place really, I think, promotes that message as well, because it's our voices.
Completely. And I think that's what gives that that unique space, because, you know, I think, you know, Andrew, you set it up, it's brilliant, but I think you'll admit that it's actually sort of more run by the young people for young people. And I think that's the best way that it will work, because, you know, even I'm fortunately too old, but it would have been, I don't know what, you know, young people go through, and that each day, you know, with all the social media, all the different pressures in life was so different to 20 years ago. And I just think having that community run by those young people that living it now, you are the ones to give the best advice. Chloe, do you feel the same? Did it kind of really help you and kind of with your mental health as well, being involved?
So I guess I feel a bit different, because I've never not had it. So I fell at my cot at very small, and then kind of started the ongoing diagnosis. So I guess I've never really not had it. And you know, talking about kind of the school system and friends and kind of university and all of that kind of stuff, I guess I just had to find a way through. And it was really hard, and it continues to be difficult. But I think the thing about Arthur's Place is that it just gives a forum where we are able to, like Jack said, not feel alone. And I think the internet and social media and all of this stuff has got a lot to answer for, but not making people feel like they're not alone is a massive plus. Particularly when you are going through all of those things, like I read a post yesterday from a woman who's pregnant. Just the fact that she's able to do that with a really specific group of people. Not only is she female, is she a kind of early, she's on immunosuppressant medication. I think she had COVID, and about 5 people went, yes, I have been in that exact position. Like, where else would you be able to find all of those crossovers? And that's what's helpful, because I guess I found a lot of them previously. So, groups of people with arthritis. Okay, I was the youngest person there. Or, people going through IVF. Yeah, okay, so that, but then weren't on immunosuppressant medication. And just so lots of different crossovers. And it's really helpful because, and Andrea, as you said, because it's got so big, it's grown so much over the last 10 years, the likelihood that you are going to find someone in that group who has been or is going through something really similar to you is actually really likely. And that's incredible. That's incredible. Because it's really hard to find.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? In the clinic situations as well, and because of certainly the constraints of the NHS with confidentiality and these sorts of things, it's quite a difficult environment, one, to make those connections, because you just don't tend to see, even if if there is a young adult clinic, even then people sort of, somebody comes in or somebody leaves, and it's not really the environment to sort of feel social. Who wants to sit there and have a good old chat, or how you're doing, or what's your experience, or it's just not that social place, is it? And I think that's where groups like this are just so important, aren't they? Because it's often the small stuff that can make a big difference as well. It's not necessarily the big conversations around maybe becoming a parent, but the simple stuff like, I'm really struggling with being able to undo mascara, or I'm really struggling with, like, trainers. I'm sick of trying to find a pair of trainers that are actually going to be comfortable, or that my employers are going to let me wear for work. Or it's just the practical everyday things as well, that there's absolute gems that come up that even I'm going, oh my god, that's like great. So we'll gather these little nuggets and we'll put them into an article that can be a sort of Arthur's Community top tips on such a thing. Hannah's created quite a few videos as well. There's some great ones on there about different gadgets, and it's that small stuff as well, isn't it? You just want the simplest of things that might feel like a problem or a big deal. If there's a quick fix solution, then let's just share it. And it's a great place, great space to be able to do that as well.
And that makes a big impact on people's lives. I think we take for granted so much, and it's kind of not until you're flaring, or that you realize, because my hands have been flaring since sort of November, and it was really simple things. I couldn't pick the kettle up. My kids had to make me a cup of, and it was just like, but then, as you say, trying to do trainers, you do the laces up, and it was, oh my gosh, it's simple things that no one realizes. And when you kind of say to people, oh, I have juvenile arthritis or any type of arthritis, they just think, oh, achy joints. Yeah, everyone gets that. It's not. It's autoimmune, and what goes along with the autoimmune diseases, it's the fatigue. It is kind of brain fog. It's a big thing for me at the moment. And but it's just general day-to-day living that actually can be a massive struggle. Sometimes even getting out of bed is a huge thing, and people just don't realize what it's actually like living with. And I think what you, Jack, and Chloe have been doing, supporting other people going through that. And I think, Chloe, you're probably a great mentor for what people are going through, thinking about pregnancy, thinking about what that would be like, and seeing that you've done that.
Holding my baby daughter at the moment is almost impossible, you know, because I've got real pain in my wrists, and it is just that thing of what can I do? What, you know, and you go to you know, you go to the OT. I've been to the rheumatology OT about kind of pregnancy before I had her, and you know, you get given all of this stuff, but actually hearing people to go, actually no, this sling is really good, because some of them have got really fiddly clips on them, or Debbie, hot water tap, that was a life changer for me. No kettle, hot water tap, that's what did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good tip. I'm like, I need a new tap actually, even though we've just done the kitchen. But yeah, no, it's great. But the thing is that's where we learn from each other, and it's having that community. And I think it is so great. It really is. Because I must admit, but even though obviously, unfortunately, you know, you can't hold your child and everything, but my two children have been amazing. 6 years ago, I couldn't get out of bed. My life was completely different. And actually, they have become my carers. They're registered as young carers even now. And actually, they are the most caring, amazing kids, because they can, and they've helped their friends. You know, some of them have been quite ill, and they've actually, well, I can do this for you. I can do that. There's nothing about it. It was just quickly, I can do that for you. And it's like, oh, I didn't have to ask. And I think it's just kind of seeing how your children will grow up into that environment as well. I think they'll be so lucky to have you as a mum, Chloe. I think you'll be absolutely amazing. So yeah, and having a community like this as well is absolutely brilliant. So, but I do just want to quickly go over and cover your podcast that you've been doing. Andrea, do you want to just take us through them, because I think they're absolutely brilliant.
I mean, the Arthur's Heroes for me, it proper gets me, Arthur's Heroes. I think because I think there's a lot of focus, isn't there? Well, obviously in clinics and things like that, and sometimes in community groups, there can be a lot of focus of the struggles or the difficult times, but actually as well, there's some massive successes, tiny successes. But I think that Arthur's Heroes has been so lovely in being able to share what's possible, and that these conditions, yes, they can affect everyday life. And yes, if there was a magic wand, of course, we would all want that for everybody. But actually, they're just one part of who like everybody is, you know. You've got so many qualities and aspects and talents and skills, and our community, I mean, they're such interesting people, even though they're still young. I mean, God, there's some of the talents and the things that they've done and the stories that they tell you, everything from Charlie was one of our first bloggers, and he was amazing in how he was living with his parents, but it was cool in that he set up a huge bedsit in part of his parents' home that became like his space, his den, a huge gaming room, and it was just great to like see that sort of shift from being in my parents to feeling this sense of having his own space and his own environment. And then I mean, Jack's shared a really lovely podcast with us as well, and we've had a Paralympian on sharing her story, and we've had somebody that has been in a documentary that was from Victoria. Just really interesting, really exciting stories. And I just hope that from that series, that perhaps people that are quite new to their diagnosis, that are sort of maybe a little bit fearful or a little bit unsure, like, gosh, what does that mean? Or like Chloe said, sometimes you see older people and you look at the hands, or treatments are so sophisticated now, and what was the experience of, say, parents or grandparents? It doesn't have to be the experience of younger people necessarily, or children, if they get a good diagnosis and they get the treatments. And I think that's one of the keys as well for anybody listening, is if they haven't got a diagnosis, just keep knocking on that GP's door to explain what your symptoms are, and to share how you've been feeling, and keep trackers on your phones. There's some great apps where you can keep symptom tracking and these sorts of things. Arthur's Heroes is about sharing what's possible, and anything is possible. You may have to tweak a little bit of how your day might go or how you get to what you want, but you can be anything you want to be, do anything you want to do, just get a little bit of support along the way. And it's possible. And we are recording right now series 2, so if anybody would love to take part and share their stories, then please do email andrea@arthursplace.co.uk, and I'd love to hear from anybody that'd love to be involved. Brilliant. And it's across all the typical podcast places, so Spotify, Apple Music, other places, and you can access it from the website.
Link. Yeah, the link's on the bottom at the moment. It's not a live link. You can't click on it, unfortunately, but if you copy or kind of just put that into your browser, that will come up. Because Jack, you Andrew said that you were involved in it. What was your feelings about it? How did it go?
Oh, I love being on the Arthur's Place podcast. I listen to enough podcasts myself, so it was just fun to be on a podcast, but also nice to just, I'm all for blogging and writing, but it's also nice to have a proper conversation as well with someone. Even it was still COVID times, and so it was still virtual, but it was absolutely fantastic. We poked and prodded at different topics. I think one of the main elements was diagnosis delay or something along those lines in my episode. And I think sometimes actually physically hear this is why I like podcasts as well, because actually physically hearing stuff can get the message across just in a different medium, a different format, and the fact that Arthur's Place covers so many different ways of getting these messages, of getting voices across is fantastic. But no, it was a really no pressure interview, and again, less of an interview, more of a conversation. And it
our host
makes you feel at
ease. So you spoke to Jess, didn't you, Jack? And Jess herself is one of the community, and Jess has AS, and I think, like you say, it's not about an interview, is it? It's literally it's quite a relaxed chat.
No, they sound great. So please do go, and listen to them. So I know I'm just going through some of the comments now, and I think there's a Nicole. She said she's waiting for a diagnosis, and she's so scared. Please don't be. Please get in contact with NRAS or Arthur's Place as well. There is plenty of support out there, and there'll be lots of people kind of in your situation as well, whatever kind of diagnosis you're waiting for. But if there is a delay, as Andrew said, keep going. Please try to get that answer that you want, and if it turns out to be rheumatoid arthritis with the National Rheumatoid Arthritis NRAS will be there for you. We have a helpline. Please do call them as well. We don't want anyone thinking they're alone. And even if you do come up with you do have rheumatoid arthritis, you can still have kind of a normal life. There will be things in management. And NRAS have done this new Smile. It's a new e-learning platform, and we've got different modules. We've got one for newly diagnosed, meet the team, one on medicines, one on managing pain and flares, which I think is very much needed, and also how to get the best out of your consultation. I think everyone knows that there are so many pressures on the NHS, so please do go and you can register and you can go through all these different modules in your own time. It's there to kind of help and support you throughout your rheumatoid arthritis journey. And also other services that we have at NRAS. We have new to RA Right Start. So if you are newly diagnosed, Nicole, if you do become newly diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, ask your healthcare professional to refer you to our Right Start service. You will then be got in contact with our information and support team. They will give you a call. They will kind of go through what RA is, how it can impact you, and also just know that there's support out there for you as well. And we'll have our peer-to-peer support, which is here for you. So if anyone out there at the moment is kind of sort of struggling or just want that peer-to-peer support, please do again call into NRAS. We will then get you matched up with a volunteer and kind of just talk to you to kind of give you those hints and tips just that is kind of needed throughout life that no one else can kind of offer. So please do get in contact with you, with us as well. And I would just, because I don't want to go over too much time, Chloe, and I know you've got to get back to your young baby.
It's okay.
I just really want to say thank you so much to Chloe, Jack, and Andrea for your time. And I think Arthur's Place is absolutely brilliant. We at NRAS, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We'll be working closer together in the future with Arthur's Place, and actually how we can support young people even more. There is so much out there, but there's always going to be more and more that we can do. So there's the Arthur's Place website as well. And from the JAA side, we are actually having our Juvenile Idiopathic Arthritis Awareness Week. It is the first week of July to coincide with America's Juvenile Arthritis Awareness Month. So it's the 3rd to the 7th of July. And what has come out from talking to the community is actually all the misconceptions about having juvenile arthritis, that kids can't have arthritis. Oh, my granny has that, which is the more osteoarthritis. So it's kind of hashtag busting JA myths. We really want to know kind of what your misconceptions are. What are the most annoying comments that you've heard that you want us to bust throughout that week? So please kind of get in contact with us. And in September, we have our RA Awareness Week as well. And also next month, because we do an NRAS live event each month, and it's always the last Wednesday of the month, on the 29th of March, the next topic is exercise and movement, and it will be with a panel discussion hosted by the CEO of NRAS, Claire Jacklin, and it will be on 7 p.m. again throughout all our social media platforms. So please do get in contact with us if we can support you in any way. No one is alone going through living with arthritis at all. So, NRAS, JA, NRAS and Arthur's Place work so closely together, and we will do going forward to support everyone. So yeah, you're definitely not alone. So thank you so much, Andrea, Jack, Chloe. I don't know if you want to say anything else at all.
Just thank you to everybody for listening, and just, I think if we could all, one of the comments that really jumps out for me, and has done from 10 years ago, from one of the first members of our community, was just that she felt very clearly that we're very much stronger together. So I think it's just about for all of us to just get the word out as much as we can that young people do have arthritis too, and that the more we all start working together to raise the voices and give all of our young people as equal a chance as everybody else. I think that's such an important thing for all of us to do, whatever the environment, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in healthcare, education, wherever it is. Listen to our young people. They've got a lot to offer and a lot to share.
Yeah, completely agree. They're our future generation anyway, so we have to support them completely, even more so. And I think the future is in safe hands with the young people at Arthur's Place. So so thank you so much, and Jack and Chloe and Andrew, for your time this evening, and everyone else. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.